I thought I was exposing my father's affair, but I was actually exposing a full-blown family catastrophe. The other woman was my own aunt, and the most terrifying part was that my mother told me later in the kitchen.
My dear, I have known for years.
She didn't want revenge, she wanted justice. This is the story of how a phone call, a copied chat, and a quiet bungalow set up the total destruction of my father's life. For months, it felt like I was the only person in the house who truly saw what was happening. Even though my mother pretended not to notice, my father came home later and later, his arrival time stretching past the dinner hour, past the evening meals, often close to midnight. His excuses were always the same: office work, a crucial deadline, the endless song of a busy man. But it was the small things that whispered the truth. His ties, normally smelling of laundry starch, sometimes carried the faint sweet scent of a woman's perfume. It was a cheap, strong kind, the smell that clung to the fabric even after the tie had been washed and ironed. His phone, which used to lie face up on the dining table for anyone to pick up, was now always face down, gripped tightly in his hand, and protected by a new code that no one knew. And his laughter, it had changed completely. When he took a sudden call and stepped into the balcony, his laugh was light and careless, like he was a younger man without worries. It was a kind of joy I had never ever heard him use when he was actually with us at home. My mother never cared to ask him questions in my hearing, or if she did, she swallowed his lies whole without showing a crack in her calm face. The house felt like it was built on a fragile, silent promise that no one would speak the truth. One evening, the silence broke inside me. He left again, claiming an urgent meeting, but the way he avoided my mother's eyes was different. It was too fast. I waited an hour until the dark had fully settled before slipping out of the house. I hailed a cab and told the driver to take me to his office at Marina. The giant building was locked up like a fortress. The only light was a single yellow bulb above the security gate. When I asked the guard about my father, the man stretched and yawned. He swore that my father had packed up and closed his desk hours ago, even before the sun had gone down. My chest tightened so hard it felt like an iron band. I knew absolutely that he was not where he was supposed to be. And just then, I saw it. His familiar red SUV drove past on the main road, moving slowly. In the passenger seat, a woman was laughing, her head thrown back so carefree. She looked far too comfortable, far too familiar. I quickly flagged down the taxi. I would get to the bottom of this. "Follow that car," I whispered to the driver, my voice shaking. We began a frantic, silent chase. We drove through the endless, loud traffic of Lagos, past shouting downfall drivers and blaring music, the city swallowing and splitting out cars. At every overturn, I thought we would lose them, but my driver was good. Finally, the SUV turned off the main road and pulled into a quiet residential street in Bagada. We followed it. When it turned, we turned. When it stopped, we stopped. You see, tonight I was determined to fish out my father's secret life. The SUV finally stopped in front of a modest private bungalow. This was not a hotel, or an office annex, or a temporary meeting spot. It was a home. My father got out of the car, went straight to the gate and opened it himself with the ease of someone who owned the place. He drove the car in, and then a woman stepped out to close the gates behind them. She peeped around to ensure no one was watching. Then I saw her face clearly. My stomach didn't just turn, it dropped entirely. I gasped. It was my mother's younger sister, Aunt Chinonye. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't breathe. The woman who came to our house every Sunday, who sat at our dining table laughing with my mother, who gave me advice and acted like a second parent. My heart thumped so hard it felt like it would burst. Even my driver felt my pain. My mother's sister was the one my father drove home to after leaving us in the dark. She was the reason for the late nights and the scent of cheap perfume. I told the driver to take me away. I couldn't keep watching, but I couldn't go home yet. The driver drove me around aimlessly, just as I requested, trying to make the image of their faces disappear, but it only burned brighter. When I finally arrived home, it was late. My father was sitting in the living room, scrolling casually on his phone as if he wasn't living a lie. He stole a brief glance at me, asked if I had eaten, and returned to his screen. His total calm, after what I had just witnessed, made me feel sick to my stomach. I muttered a reply and went straight to my room, my heart pounding so loudly I thought the reading would expose my secrets. Much later, in the dead of the night, I heard his voice. It was low, muffled, but close to my door.
I will come tomorrow.
He was saying.
Don't worry, baby. She doesn't suspect anything.
I froze in the darkness, my skin crawling. He was wrong. Terribly wrong. Someone did suspect. Someone knew everything. And it was me. I crept to the kitchen for a glass of water. The light was on. I found my mother quietly arranging food into small containers, preparing breakfast for the next day. She looked absent-minded for a long moment, her eyes deep and utterly calm, as if she had been waiting for me. There was no surprise on her face, only a bone-deep weariness. Then she spoke, her voice flat and low.
You followed your father, didn't you?
I nodded. The words stuck in my throat, unable to form a single sound. She sighed, pressing her hands flat on the cold countertop to steady them.
My dear, I have known for years. I was only waiting for you to find out for yourself,
she said. The silence was heavier than any shout. The air in the kitchen was thick with my mother's unspoken pain. Her revelation that she had known for years and was only waiting for me to see the truth didn't calm my anger. It sharpened it. It gave me a purpose. 2 days later, the devil herself showed up. My aunt came over unexpectedly on a Tuesday evening. She claimed she missed us and brought ingredients to make our favorite local soup. She moved through our kitchen with that same familiar careless ease that now made my skin crawl. My father returned home early that day, smelling like fresh soap and guilt, clearly delighted to see her there. We sat down to eat, my father, my mother, my aunt, and me. It was the weirdest dinner we had ever had. I decided to strike. Aunt Chichi, I said, putting down my fork and staring straight at her. It must be so tiring having to always leave work late. You seem very busy these days. I hope you're resting enough when you finally get home. Her smile was fixed, but her eyes flickered. Oh, honey, you know how it is, she replied, a little too quickly. The workload is crazy, but sometimes you just have to work hard for those important clients. My mother remained silent, watching the food on her table. I pressed on, making sure my father listened too. It's hard to trust people when their lives become so secretive. I heard a story the other day about someone who thought they were building a home, but they were actually just building a very expensive lie. I paused, then smiled sweetly. It's easy to hide a key, right? But it's very impossible to hide a whole house. My aunt's face finally cracked. The color drained out of her, and she quickly took a sip of juice. That sounds really sad, she mumbled, avoiding my gaze. My father cleared his throat and started talking loudly about the weather, trying to drown me out. But the damage had been done. The comfortable feeling was gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I waited, listening for the sound of the shower running. My father's one moment of total distraction. When I heard the water, I crept out. His phone was charging on the nightstand, face up for once. I snatched it. In his haste, he had only locked the main screen, not his apps. I went straight to WhatsApp. The chat with my aunt was at the top. I think she knows that girl was talking crazy at dinner. My father replied,
Don't be silly. She's just a child. You just need to be more careful. No more late calls.
My aunt texted, but what if she followed you? I just got back from my husband's house. I can't afford another scandal. I froze. Her husband. My aunt was already separated from her own husband, and it was over having an affair. That meant my father wasn't just ruining his own marriage. He was playing with a woman who already had a score to settle with a very angry husband. I didn't waste time reading more. I used a quick process I knew, a tiny QR code trick, and cloned his WhatsApp onto my old hidden phone in minutes. I didn't want him to know I had touched his device. I put the phone back exactly as I found it. For the next few days, I watched the cloned chats. They were nervous, but they couldn't stop. They set a new date for their secret meeting. Friday evening, the Wagada house. Now, I had a time and a place. My plan was simple and cruel. I meant to expose the truth to everyone who needed to see it. First, I found my aunt's husband. It took a few calls to mutual family friends. I called him from an unregistered number, keeping my voice low and disguised. Mr. Tunde, I said, I know who your wife is seeing, and I know where she will be this Friday night at 7 p.m. She is in Bagada at a small white bungalow. He didn't hang up. He just breathed heavily into the phone.
Who is this?
Someone who believes in the truth, I replied. You were right to suspect her before, and this is your proof. Just be there. Next, I went to my mother. I told her everything, the phone, the cloning, the address, the aunt's history with her husband, and the plan for Friday. I didn't hold back any detail. She listened. Then she looked at me with a steady calm I still don't understand. You will not go, she said simply. You will stay here. Your purpose is finished. On Friday evening, I sat alone in my room, listening to the silence. My father had left early with the usual lie. My mother also dressed quietly, telling me she was going to visit a friend across town. She didn't have to say where she was really going. We both knew. The full story of that Friday night came out over the following weeks, pieced together from whispers and hushed phone calls. My mother, calm and dressed impeccably, arrived first at the bungalow. She waited patiently for Mr. Tunde, my aunt's husband, who pulled up shortly after. They walked up to the house and knocked, just as the front door opened, and my father, looking rumpled and guilty, stepped out with my aunt. The sight of his wife and the furious Mr. Tunde standing together, side by side, was enough. There was screaming, shoving, and a public scene that attracted every neighbor on that quiet street. My mother beat the living daylights out of her sister, while Mr. Tunde dragged my father like tiger generator. Eyewitnesses said he threw punches at him like there was a bet placed. Eventually, police officers came and everyone fled the scene. The consequences of the affair were swift and final. The next week, my father was fired from his job. His urgent deadlines and late nights were discovered to be fake absences used to fail his double life, and his boss had no patience for such scandal. He broke up with my aunt instantly, throwing all the blame on her.
You ruined my life.
He screamed at her.
You knew the risk. You cost me everything.
As for my mother and Mr. Tunde, they sat down for coffee the next morning. They weren't plotting revenge. They were simply two betrayed people sharing the heavy realization of their spouse's deceits. They found a quiet comfort in each other's shared history. Two ships navigating away from the wreck. My mother filed for divorce a month later. She didn't need the money. She just needed the peace and her truth. The final laugh was hers. She had waited for me to see my father for who he really was.
And then she walked away, strong and free.
My aunt was left completely alone, having lost her husband and her sidecock in one chaotic night. But for my mother and Mr. Tunde, their shared trauma became a bonding factor, eventually leading to promises of love and forever vows. Less than a year later, my mother and Mr. Tunde were married in a small, elegant ceremony. The horror on my father's face when he saw the wedding invitation, which I purposely left for him to see, was a final perfect justice. He lost his wife, his job, and his mistress, only to watch his ex-wife marry the husband of the woman he cheated with, the man who was her long-lost love. My mother found her second chance, and my father was left with nothing but his shame. It was such a beautiful thing. If you enjoyed this story and you would like to see more amazing stories from Ibery Stories Hub, please consider subscribing to this channel and turn on your post notifications so you'll be aware when a new video drops. Also, check out other videos on this channel and I promise you will not be disappointed. Till we meet again in my next video, remain fabulous.